Good morning everyone, Gadget here in the Henry studio for a new video on the RF 85mm 1.2 lens from Canon. When this came out, it definitely piqued my interest, but I probably had the same question that you may have had. How does this compare to its predecessor? There's a lot more technology going on, and this one is built for the new RF mirrorless mount from Canon. But how much better is it than its predecessor? Well, we're gonna try and answer that question in this video. Stay tuned. Now the first thing you'll notice about the 85mm RF lens is that it is big. It has hips to it. You cannot ignore it. It weighs over 1 kilogram and has an 82mm filter size, so this lens is not gonna go unnoticed. Now with this size, there's some new innovations that are being built into this lens. Namely, you have weather and dust resistance. You have a new control ring on the lens itself to control another setting outside of focus. And you have a new blue refractive system. It sounds really technical, but quite simply is supposed to reduce any noticeable fringing in highlight areas. We're gonna put this all to the test and find out exactly how much of a difference it creates for the user. Is it enough of a difference between the EF version to justify this purchase? Well, let's find out. So we're here on location with Thiso of Thiso Makeup. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a little bit new for you. You're actually gonna be in front of the camera and we're gonna test out. Does the RF 85mm lens have a significant improvement over the EF version? And you know, this one is quite massive. So let's get to shooting and see what the differences are. So with the early shots, the one thing I noticed is that the RF version of this lens, it just focuses a little bit faster, finds the subject a little bit quicker than the EF version. Another thing is they talked about focusing distance, that the 85 RF lens has a closer focusing distance. That is the case. Depending on the subject and what kind of image you're going for, if you want to go with that dreamy 1.2 aperture and get really close to your subject, you're going to have a little bit more latitude with the RF version. Again, this is a marginal benefit, so it's going to come back to how much you shoot at this distance and what kind of content you're looking for. But in our tests, shooting in this environment, we were able to focus at a closer distance than the EF version. So we just tried out the focusing distance. The next thing I want to test out on the RF lens is this blue refractive system. It says that it's supposed to reduce fringing in the highlights when you have this high contrast area between really harsh sunlight and maybe someone's hair. So let's test it out in this environment and see if there's a noticeable difference with respect to fringing. All right, so we're done shooting for today, and in the quick shootout that we had right now, the RF lens was a tad bit better at focusing, a little bit better at getting closer to the subject, but we're gonna go back to the studio, take a look at these files and see how much of a difference you see between the EF and RF lens. So now that we're back in studio, let's try to answer this question. Does the RF 85mm 1.2 lens produce a better image than the EF 85mm 1.2 lens? The short answer is yes. You're gonna notice something that gives you a bit more local contrast, something that delivers slightly better punch. The RF lens also has a shorter focusing distance, so it just allows you to get a little bit more closer to your subject. And Canon's new system to reduce chromatic aberration in highlight areas proved to be noticeable. It's funny how when you don't want chromatic aberration, it shows up in your image, and when you're chasing chromatic aberration, it's really hard to fake. Well, when I was testing the EF 85mm lens, we could see a bit of it. And I'll show you some examples right now. You'll see a little bit of these purple bluish tints that show up around the hairline when we had the backlight set up. With the RF 85mm lens, yes, it is less. I can't quantify this for you. And for a lot of you watching, you know, hitting that defringe slider on Lightroom or Capture One will solve the problem. However, this is impacting the image globally. So for some of you pro shooters and pro retouchers, you'd rather not impact that entire image. And not even having to worry about that might even be a worthy benefit. When I was using the RF 85mm lens and the images that we captured that we were able to do in our environment, we did see less chromatic aberration. There may be a small percentage of you that find that specifically valuable, and that is something that you value in the work that you do, but I imagine a lot of you that are watching this video, it might not tip the scales in either direction. Canon also says that you're going to get better edge-to-edge sharpness with the RF lens compared to their EF predecessor. Now, we were shooting portraits outdoors at sunset. We didn't shoot any landscape, so I didn't get to test this out. One thing I did see is the noticeable increase in focusing speed. The RF version just found the subject a lot faster. There was less hunting going on, and especially at sunset when the time is limited and you're chasing the sun, I found this to be incredibly useful. Now, we didn't have the budget for people to throw buckets of water at me while I was shooting, but the addition of weather and dust resistance into this lens will allow you to shoot with a little bit of peace of mind, especially when you're working outdoors. Using the RF 85mm lens and the new control ring that it provides, it is a little bit of a benefit. Now, I thought I would value having exposure compensation on the lens. Turns out it wasn't as useful as I thought it would be, especially when I'm controlling the lights myself. I ended up switching it to aperture and having that dynamic control on the lens as opposed to having it on the body. This is more going to be about preference and what you enjoy using and how you shoot. I don't think it's a big game changer. However, it is just a useful ergonomic feature that may be beneficial to the way that you shoot. Now, the weight difference of these two lenses is quite noticeable. When I put the RF 85 on the EOS R, it felt a little bit more front heavy. You needed that second hand support, and shooting single-handed does become tiresome very quickly. That being said, is it going to be a deal breaker for some of you? Probably not. All in all, I had a ton of fun using these two lenses and having a little bit of a shootout to see how they performed, and switching between the two dynamically really allowed me to see the benefits of the RF versus the EF. If we're talking about image quality and usability, the RF lens does come out on top. It just provides a better image, and in the environments that we were shooting in, focuses much faster on our subject and at a bit of a closer distance, which allows us to get the shot that we're looking to capture. However, that difference in image quality and usability will only depend on how often you shoot and where your end result is going to end up. For many of you watching, that difference isn't significant, and the EF85 with the EF to RF adapter built in will get the job done and allow you to capture the image you want to capture. But there are some of you that simply want the best available. What is the best 85mm lens made by Canon? It is the RF version. This thing is fantastic. It was a joy to use, and for those of you that shoot often, shoot for print, and really need the best image quality out of camera, you're not going to be disappointed with a product like this. Thank you so much for watching. Before you go, why don't you let me know what's your favorite portrait lens? Which system do you shoot on, and which one do you enjoy using the most to capture the images that you're looking to capture? Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you know when a new video comes out. I'm Gadgen, and we'll see you next time.